Good day, everybody. I want to say hello to my new friends and my old friends, and I want to remind you about the YouTube website, Rick Heenahan, Common Sense HD, and you can watch many of the shows there, and as well, you can see them on BCAT TV 4 days a week, for usually around 3 weeks in length. Today's guest has a man of two hats, in a sense, which is Brad Bond. He's chairman of the Burlington Ways and Means Committee and a town meeting member for Precinct 1. Yep. Thank you very much for being here, Brad.
Oh, thanks for having me in today, Rick.
It's so wonderful to have you here. We're going to continue our conversation of growth in Burlington and its effect on quality of life, especially traffic,
Oh, yep.
as we were talking about earlier. And we're going to talk about it with a little bit of a slideshow and as well just some discussion. But one of the questions I had asked Brad when we first started was what could people in Burlington do to influence or help with creating a traffic plan for the town?
Oh,
and,
certainly, Rick. Yeah, so at the last, for those of you who are watching the last town meeting, the planning board actually asked for money to do a comprehensive master plan. This is actually a plan that's required by state law that each community have. Our last one is about 20 years out of date, so they said it's time to start looking at this again. Phase one is actually where we're going to be, the planning board is going to be interviewing members of the community to see what their goals and ideals are for the town of Burlington. I mean, if you're going to do planning, you know, there are infinitely many ways that that the planning can develop. They do want input from all the different groups in town to see if they can't find some compromise between the various groups. Let me just put in a word on planning and growth here in town. Again, I've been on Ways and Means for 7 years now, and one of the things, you know, our big focus is how do we provide the services in town, can maintain the services that we have in town, make sure that we watch our emergency funds, our saving accounts carefully, but also don't unduly burden the taxpayers. So the past 3 or 4 years, we've actually kept the impact to the taxpayer, the growth in the property tax. The homeowners have only seen in the neighborhood of about a 2.5% growth in their property tax each of the last 4 years. We actually raised the levy, though, about 4%. That other 1.5% comes from the growth of the tax base. So that means if somebody adds a deck to their house, their property value is going to go up. If somebody finishes their basement, property value goes up. And so this is a segue into what we'll talk about as you're redoing buildings, as you're building new buildings, that all increases the basic tax base in the town. So again, from the Ways and Means perspective, we would like to see some growth. But the tricky part of all of this is seeing controlled growth. So I'm sure we'll come back to that a couple times. But just in terms of what the planning board is looking at, in 2015, they're going to look at transportation specifically. And let me just read from their document that they passed around at town meeting. The transportation element will develop an inventory of existing and proposed transportation systems. This element will examine multiple modes of transportation, including pedestrian, bicycle, automobile, truck, and public transit, as well as the streetscape. Transportation has been the #1 concern throughout the last decade during development review. And gone are the days, and this is highlighted, gone are the days of a case-by-case fix by each development. I mean, just as an aside, you know, projects will come before town meeting, and someone will ask about the traffic, and you know, we'll normally, you know, hear them say, well, we'll time the lights. So, yeah, okay. So gone are the days we can look at this by case for each development. We're now at a time that extensive research and coordination is needed by all of the stakeholders involved, including Burlington town officials, Mass DOT, the the development community and residents to collectively analyze and identify meaningful improvements through public-private partnerships, targeted capital improvements, and state funding in both short-term and long-term throughout Burlington. So again, keep an eye out. I'm sure the planning board will be getting a lot of messages out, and will be seeking input from the community.
Because the way we started the conversation was in the sense of Burlington growth, and one of the conversations I've had with Senator Donnelly and State Rep Gordon is the traffic issue. And there's, the people who are building are saying there's not a traffic problem, sort of, and the people who are driving are concerned about the traffic problem because it just, here today, the common conversation was it's a half hour to anywhere in Burlington.
Yep. Yep.
And the town's not that big.
Right. Right.
And so it really, sort of, you have to wonder when you go out and you look at the size of the construction that is ongoing. There's several large construction sites where there's going to be large numbers of people and cars, and those cars and people are all going to be moving at the same time. I mean, you drive by Barnes & Noble on a Saturday afternoon, if you could get a parking space in there, you should rent it out. You might be able to sell it for the $520,000 like the IRS. It's vicious, and so you have that next site down that's being put in, which is Middlesex Commons, I think.
Yep.
And you're just going to compound and continue to compound the traffic issues because right behind there, which we're going to see some pictures of, I went out and took them this morning, is a very large construction site with multiple buildings on multiple floors. We're not seeing them build the one-story large footprint buildings anymore like they used to for commercial buildings in Burlington. They're building the large footprint multi-story buildings, which you have 800 people in or something like that, and then that means you got 400 cars, and they all want to leave at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, I know I've seen where, and it won't happen again only because there are more malls, but where there really was, like 2 hours just to get to the mall.
Wow. Wow.
So why don't we start with some of the pictures and then we'll get going, because I know that some people, well, this is one of my favorite places in Burlington in the sense of bad traffic planning, because this is out in front of the Bank of America where the pizza place is, and they're putting in a yogurt place. There's absolutely no parking. There's one place to go in, and any parking that there is out back, and that parking lot is so bad that it's just, I mean, you think you're in Boston out back.
It can fill up, yeah. Now this particular location, I've actually seen that at one time they actually allowed the road through that parking lot into the bank, but they closed that off to improve the traffic some few years ago. I still see actually some graduate students at MIT use Burlington as a study for their planning course, 10 or 12 years or so ago. And one of the things for that site specifically is they were talking about actually redoing another access road right there, and also one in the center of town. But that particular site is part of the Route 3A overlay district that went through town meeting 3 or 4 years or so ago, and so there is additional zoning in place. So if there is a transfer of ownership on the building, or if there are significant changes being proposed, that would be taken into consideration under the new zoning articles, which are moving toward. You keep hearing that with all these sites we're going to be talking about. Everybody keeps talking about mixed use. That's been sold to town meeting as being the best use of space, where you have some residential and business and sales. You can pump up and have a vibrant community going on. So that's the ultimate goal of the center of town. And we're seeing all this happening kind of in fits and starts right now. But
yeah, because I know one of the problems with that location is trying to pull out of there. And I mean, the cars, some of them buzz right along on Cambridge Street there, and the big joke in Burlington is Cambridge Street 1 lane or 2 lanes.
Right, it is now. So it is a state road. It is a state road. So I'll point the finger at the state, but officially it is one lane, other than for the left turn lanes, and yet. My wife and I have had heated debates when she's driving down the road and driving right down the center, and I explain that there's the law, and then there's the
Right.
there's the everyday reality.
Culture, yeah.
So
Yeah, the line markings are mysteriously missing. But so, I mean, there are a lot of projects like this around Burlington, and that would motivate people to believe that there needs to be some sort of comprehensive plan. But is there one?
no, today there is not one. We do have, there is a traffic committee in town, represents from planning board and various agencies in town. But again, the hope is with this master plan they're talking about, they can put something together. But
Well, in
I mean,
2014, Wegmans and King's Bowling Alley is supposed to be open.
there's a lot coming online right now. There are, I do know that we are getting, when we do a big project, one of the things that we always ask for is help with traffic mitigation. So as we go through, I think a few of these sites, there is significant money coming in for adding additional lanes, adding better signage, redoing. It turns out just putting in traffic lights at an intersection is a very expensive proposition, but
Right.
but redoing some of the lights and such at that level. So, but again, as I read off the plan, right, currently it's just kind of at a site by site location. But as your two previous guests have talked about, and the folks on the traffic committee will point at this as well, it is an issue. There is an issue with Burlington. I mean, there are things I think we need to put more money in, but again, have some plan where we can move in a better direction. But we do need to, something needs to be done regionally, where you do have some major corridors coming through town. I know I always point the finger at some of our neighboring communities driving north up Middlesex Turnpike who block the intersection. So even attempting to take a right on the Middlesex Turnpike, especially at the holidays,
Right.
good luck on that. That's not a function of Burlington. That's traffic going through Burlington.
Right.
So I guess I'm arguing for a master plan at the regional level. I'm hoping that Mr. Gordon and Mr. Donnelly are involved in those ongoing discussions.
Me too.
Yeah.
How about next one, Joan? Well, this is Banyan Star, and I was just curious. I understand it's going to be a sporting goods store. Possibly?
I don't know this official. I believe this was announced on B News within the last month, but I think the plan is for sporting goods. Yeah, this used to be right on Middlesex Turnpike, but now Middlesex Turnpike has been diverted, and I guess you were telling me about some of the issues with they've actually cut off the flow along there.
Yeah. They've blocked it. So, but there's a lot of retail space opening up around there.
Right.
How about the next one, Joan? Because this is one that, okay, so this is where Wegmans and King's Bowling Alley is going in.
Yeah.
So, like we were talking about, Wegmans going to be looking for $10,000 hours.
Yeah.
And they are not going to be looking for it out of one person. So, there are going to be a large volume of cars back there, and King's is going to be pretty close to that. They're probably, looking for $5,000 hours, or
Just to put a positive spin on this, I used to live in upstate New York when Wegmans came in. The community's going to love Wegmans, assuming they can get to Wegmans, and I'm excited that we've got bowling coming back to the town. So, but in terms of traffic flow, right now, I know the VP of Development for Northwest Park has told town meeting that his traffic engineers, the folks he has looking at the traffic flow along that segment of Middlesex Turnpike, so that's the part north of Mall Road, south of Bedford Street. their claim is that that road currently is empty. Now you've seen they've put in a lot of, they have actually added in some left-hand turning lanes, you know, to get back to the DPW site and all that. They've added in some signage and some lights and such. So they're claiming that currently that's empty. So at least according to their numbers, they're under